Hey, you. Yes, you. Have you ever felt like you were the black sheep, the one everyone ignored, mocked, or used, like you never really fit in? What if I told you that wasn't a mistake? You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're the chosen one. And something powerful just happened. On June 21st, 2025, the energy around you shifted. You may not have noticed it at first, but your soul did. The pain, the confusion, the silent battles, it wasn't for nothing. Because now, the old cycle has ended. The narcissists who drained you, who lied to you, who tried to break your spirit, they lost access to you. This is your new beginning. The moment you step into your truth, your light, your power, no more begging for love, no more explaining your worth. You were never meant to stay small. You were born to rise. So stay with me till the end, because this message could change the way you see your past, your pain, and your purpose. If this speaks to you, don't scroll away. Drop a star in the comments if you feel the shift. Join our soul tribe by hitting follow and sharing your journey. This is more than a video, it's a spiritual call, and you just answered it. Let's go, chosen one. Your story starts now. June 21st, 2025 was not just another day on the calendar. It was something more, something powerful that many people didn't even notice. But deep inside, something shifted. The air felt different. Time felt slower yet more alive. It was as if something invisible but important had arrived. This day was not an accident. It was a portal, a kind of spiritual doorway, and not everyone could see it, let alone walk through it. Only those who have been through the fire, the pain, the loneliness, and still kept their hearts soft. Only they could feel it. And you are one of them. There is something very special about being chosen. It doesn't mean you are better than others. It means you've been through battles most people can't even imagine. You've cried when no one saw. You've smiled when your world was falling apart. You gave love when all you got was silence. But even when you were tired, you didn't give up. That's why this portal was made for you. That's why June 21st found you, because your soul was ready. This portal is not something you walk through with your feet. It's a change inside of you. Suddenly, old things don't control you anymore. Old pain feels like it no longer belongs. You stop chasing people who never valued you. You begin to trust yourself. You feel a strange peace, even when nothing outside looks different. That's how you know you stepped through the doorway. It was always meant for you. Not for the loud, not for the proud, but for the quiet warriors who carry light in the dark. You didn't miss it. You were never too late. You were made for this exact moment. You didn't stumble into this. You were guided. And now, the new chapter begins. You are finally walking the path that only the chosen can walk. They wore the mask of God in your story, controlling, twisting, pretending. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. Now the light is exposing everything, and their false power, it's falling apart, piece by piece. You didn't just survive, you transcended. While they were busy clinging to control, feeding their ego and playing mind games, you were growing, silently, healing in the shadows, evolving where they couldn't see. And now, you've risen beyond their reach. You're not just stronger, you're untouchable. This was never about revenge, or it was always about realignment. You didn't come here to fight battles that drain your soul. You came to shift the atmosphere, to rise into a frequency so high, the narcissist can no longer find a way in. They can't reach you now because you've become the vibration they were never meant to touch. They can't mirror you anymore because you've shattered the mirror. They used your light to build their false self, but the source has gone sovereign. There was a time when they watched you so closely, not because they loved you, but because they needed to copy you. They mirrored your smile, your kindness, your dreams. They used your light like it was theirs to borrow. Every compliment they gave, every connection they pretended to feel, it wasn't real. It was a mask. You were never in a relationship with them. You were in a relationship with your own reflection. They studied you just to become you. Because deep down, they knew you had something they didn't. Light, soul, depth, power. They didn't admire you. They needed you to survive. They needed your energy to build their fake identity. But here's the part they didn't expect. The source woke up. You finally saw it. You saw the pattern, the lies, the way they twisted truth, and that's when everything changed. Because once the mirror cracks, it can't be used again. And you didn't just walk away, you shattered the entire mirror. Now they can't reflect you, because there's nothing.
God in your life is now exposed, not because you exposed them, but because the light you now carry leaves no shadows untouched. Their illusion is cracking, their lies are unraveling, and their ability to feed off your energy has ended. You didn't just leave them. You left the entire frequency that allowed their manipulation to thrive. You are not vibrating in trauma anymore. You're vibrating in truth. You're not operating from pain. You're operating from power. And that power is what they always feared, not because of what you said, but because of what you are. They sensed it before you did. That's why they tried to dim it. But what they didn't know is that the light in you doesn't go out. It goes silent until it's ready to explode. And now it has. You've been activated not as someone who needs to prove their worth, but as someone who finally knows it. You are no longer carrying wounds. You are carrying wisdom. You are no longer the mirror they used to build their false self. You are the flame they can't touch. The version of you that needed their validation has died. And in its place, something divine has risen. You've been reborn. And this rebirth is not about revenge, it's about radiant overflow. You no longer chase what you now attract. You no longer beg for what you now embody. You no longer explain your boundaries. You enforce them with your presence. Every tear you cried, every lonely night, every silent battle was a seed. And now those seeds are growing into unshakable forests of purpose, clarity, and self-love. What once haunted you has lost its grip because you've returned to your origin, your truth, your light, your divine assignment. The silence you endured was never weakness. It was sacred preparation. It was where your wings were forming. And now that you've taken flight, no one can put you back in the cage they once controlled you in. You are soaring even if your feet are still learning where to land. You are healing even if the scars still ache on quiet days. But the difference now, you know you're not going back. You know that no matter how loud the narcissist screams or how hard they try to pull you in, you are no longer available to that version of life. They lost access not because you hate them, but because you outgrew them. You are no longer food for broken egos. You are nourishment for truth. Your energy is sacred and your peace is protected. And from this point on, anyone who wants to sit at your table must come correct, with honesty, humility, and light. The war they waged against your soul is over. You didn't win by fighting back. You won by rising out. You are proof that you can be shattered and still shine, that you can be silenced and still sing, that you can be left for dead and still resurrect. You are the walking reminder that God doesn't need perfect people. He needs willing ones. And you were willing even when it hurt, even when it made no sense, even when the world told you to give up. So now the divine is honoring that with restoration, with peace, with clarity, with blessings that carry no sorrow. You are not the same person who entered the storm. You are the survivor who now carries the map for others to follow. You are the prophecy they tried to suppress, the light they tried to extinguish, the story they never expected to unfold. And yet here you are, glowing, rising, unbothered, untouchable. This is your new beginning. Walk in it. Speak life into it. Own it, because the old chapter has closed, and this time, you're writing the story, not from trauma, but from truth, not from fear, but from fire. Welcome to your rise, chosen one. June 21st was never your end. It was the moment you finally remembered who you are. You didn't just survive the narcissist, you survived the version of yourself that didn't know better, the version that overgave, overexplained, overforgave. The version that thought love meant tolerating mistreatment, that peace meant keeping others comfortable while you suffered in silence. That old self. The one who stayed quiet to avoid conflict, the one who walked on eggshells to keep broken people calm, has been laid to rest. And in their place stands someone reborn in fire, crowned in discernment, and grounded in their worth. That's the true miracle, not that you escaped them, but that you found you again, because the real battle wasn't just against them, it was against every belief they planted in your mind, every lie that told you you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. Every manipulation that convinced you the chaos was your fault. But now, you see clearly. You see through the mask, through the fake apologies, through the empty promises and cycle of guilt and charm. And more importantly, you see yourself clearly. Your power, your softness, your strength, your boundaries, your divine essence. You're not hard because you healed. You're holy because you surrendered. You gave the pain to God, quietly, then fiercely. You didn't just patch the wounds, you transformed. You began remembering who you were before they taught you to doubt it. Before they convinced you that love meant pain and approval meant sacrifice. You are no longer the person who accepts breadcrumbs. You are no longer the one who waits to be chosen. You are chosen by the divine, by destiny, by your own soul. And now, you've been unleashed. You are not just better. You are reborn. Reborn with boundaries that protect your peace. Reborn with a voice that carries power. Reborn with an inner light that doesn't dim for anyone's comfort. And the narcissist? They feel it. They know you're no longer their supply. No longer a source of energy they can feed off. No longer a mirror to reflect their false identity. You've unplugged from their control. You've shattered the cycle, and they can't reach you anymore. Because what once hooked you no longer holds power. You're not triggered like before. You're not confused like before, because now you see the games, the masks, the manipulation, and it no longer works. Not because you're cold, but because you're wise. This is your activation season. The moment where you realize they didn't destroy you, they awakened you. And now, no one will ever get to use your heart as a battleground again. You'll never trade your peace to keep someone else comfortable. You'll never beg for the bare minimum. You've tasted your own power, and it's more satisfying than any approval they could have given. You've been unleashed, not to fight, but to lead, not to prove, but to be, fully, unapologetically, radiantly. You don't need their validation. You don't even need closure, because your healing gave you everything they couldn't. You are whole. You are enough. You are no longer surviving the past. You are building your future. And anyone who comes near you now must meet you in truth, in love, in light, because the version of you that accepted anything less, they're gone. You're not just better, you're untouchable. You're not just healed, you've been unleashed. June 21st marked your energetic exit and their spiritual exposure. Written in a powerful, emotional, and easy-to-understand way, June 21st wasn't just a date, it was a divine shift. Something invisible but undeniable happened. A door closed behind you, not with noise, but with certainty. You didn't just leave them physically, you left them energetically. Your spirit exited the game, the cycle, the pull, that invisible thread they used to tug on your emotions. It's been cut, for good. And with that exit, something else began. Their mask started to fall. The charm no longer works. The lies don't land like they used to. The people who once believed them now see them clearly. The light you used to lend them has returned home to you. This is what divine reversal looks like. The curtain has fallen. The audience sees everything now. The roles have reversed. Where they once looked powerful and confident, now they seem exposed, desperate, small. And where you once looked broken and unsure, now you stand rooted, rising, radiant. You didn't get revenge, you got release. You didn't scream the truth, you became it. And now your peace speaks louder than any argument ever could. You're not reacting anymore. You're not explaining, because you remembered who you are. You're the chosen one, not because you're perfect, but because you were called to break the cycle. You were never meant to stay stuck in their story. You were meant to write your own. June 21st wasn't your ending. It was your activation. And now the world and the narcissist are witnessing the return of the real you. Not the wounded version, not the shrinking version, but the sovereign soul who finally realized the power was yours all along. There comes a time in every chosen one's life when everything shifts, not because the outside world suddenly changes, but because something sacred awakens inside of you. June 21st, 2025 was not just a date on the calendar, it was a divine checkpoint, a cosmic shift, a spiritual portal. And you crossed through it, not even realizing the full magnitude of what just happened. You didn't need fireworks or applause. The shift was quiet but irreversible. It was your energetic exit, your moment of release, rebirth, and realignment. Everything you've been through, the betrayal, the confusion, the gaslighting, the pain of loving people who only saw you as a source, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation, because only those who've been to the deepest valleys can carry the kind of light that breaks generational curses. You were chosen not because life would be easy, but because you were built to rise through what was meant to crush you. And now that rise is happening. You may not feel loud or victorious, that's okay. The power rising within you is not noisy, it's rooted, it's calm, it's unshakable. The narcissist who once played shake their entire illusion. Now they're left watching what true power looks like and realizing they never had it. Long before you ever knew who you were, they did. They saw something in you, a light, a strength, a quiet power that scared them. They didn't know how to name it, but they could feel it. That's why they tried to dim it. That's why they made you doubt yourself, question your worth, and shrink to fit their comfort zone. Because deep down, they knew. You were the prophecy they couldn't control. You were the shift they were warned about. The one who would break patterns. The one who would rise from silence and speak truth into places that were built on lies. They sensed your power before you could even access it. So they attacked it early on, with shame, with silence, with manipulation. They didn't try to destroy you because you were weak. They tried because you were chosen, but here you are, awake, aligned, walking in everything they hoped you'd never discover. You're no longer hiding. You're no longer seeking validation from broken people. You've found your voice, you've found your truth, and that's what they feared most, because now your presence exposes lies, your peace disturbs their chaos, your growth breaks their control. They tried to suppress the prophecy, but you became it anyway, and now no one can stop the rise of someone who finally remembers who they are. They used to live in your mind, rent-free. Their words echoed long after they were gone. You replayed the arguments, the confusion, the fake apologies. You wondered if it was your fault if you were too much or never enough. But that version of you is gone now. not because you forgot what happened, but because you finally remembered who you are. You found your origin, your truth, and that truth is unshakable. You're not broken, you're awakened. You've come back to yourself, the real you, the you before the pain, the you that doesn't need permission to shine, the you that's grounded in purpose, in peace, in divine protection. And now they can't haunt you, they can't twist your mind or hijack your emotions. They no longer live in your thoughts because they don't belong there. You've cleansed the space. You've reclaimed your soul. You're not trapped in the past anymore. You're living in the now, present, powerful, and whole. You don't just survive triggers, you transcend them. Their presence no longer shakes you. Their silence no longer controls you. They lost their grip the moment you found your truth. And now they'll never have access again. Because a soul that has returned to its source can never be haunted again. The mask they wore for so long is gone. The charm, the lies, the fake kindness, all of it has melted away under the heat of your light. You don't even have to expose them. Your growth, your peace, your glow does it for you, because when you rise, their shadows can no longer hide. For so long, they fooled others. They fooled you. They made you question your reality, your feelings, your worth. They smiled in public and manipulated in private. But now people are starting to see the truth. And more importantly, so are you. You see yourself clearly now, not through the filter of their control, but through the eyes of your healing. You don't carry the weight of their guilt anymore. You don't shrink under their judgment, because your light has become too powerful, too pure, too honest, and it burns through every lie they ever told. They can't hide behind their mask anymore, because your presence reveals what they tried to keep in the dark. Your light brings truth, not just to others, but to you. You finally see the real you, the one who is worthy, strong, chosen, and unstoppable. And now they can't stand in your light, because their illusion doesn't survive in truth. You've been unleashed, not just healed. You're not just better, you're reborn, and you'll never be anyone's supply again. There's a difference between healing and rising. Healing means you survived, but rising, that means you've been unleashed. For a long time, you thought healing meant going back to who you used to be, back to that soft, kind, hopeful version of yourself, the one they took advantage of. But now you understand something deeper. You weren't meant to go back. You were meant to be reborn. They didn't just break your heart. They tried to break your spirit. They drained your energy, silenced your voice, and tried to convince you that their treatment was your fault. You were used as supply, ma'am, a source of light, validation, and love for someone who never intended to give anything real back. But you kept showing up. You kept loving. You kept hoping, until something inside you shifted. It wasn't loud, it didn't happen overnight. But piece by piece, the fog lifted, the illusion cracked, the truth whispered, "This is not love, this is control." And from that moment on, you began to rise. At first,
Energy that was drained, the love you gave that was never returned, none of it was wasted. You didn't lose. You were being prepared for a harvest far greater than you imagined. Because God doesn't just restore, He multiplies. You won't get back the same things you lost. You'll receive better. You'll rise into joy that doesn't feel familiar, because it's not recycled. It's brand new, a kind of peace that doesn't shake when storms come, a level of protection that keeps your name out of rooms you don't belong in. This is not about revenge. That's too small for someone like you. This is about realignment. The tables are turning not because you forced them, but because the truth always rises. The narcissists who took without giving, who played with your heart and twisted your light, they didn't win. They simply exposed themselves. You were never abandoned. You were redirected. redirected to a timeline where you no longer have to chase love or prove your worth, a timeline where your glow speaks louder than your words and your presence activates favor in places your name hasn't even been spoken yet. Divine justice doesn't scream. It whispers, "Watch what I do next." You may have cried in secret, but you're about to rejoice in public. Those silent nights where you begged for a sign, they were heard. Those moments when you gave and gave until you were empty, they were counted. And now the heavens are responding not with pity, but with radiant overflow. Open doors, divine connections, peace that doesn't ask permission, strength you didn't know you had. All of it coming to you, not because of revenge, but because of who you've become. You didn't curse the pain, you learned from it. You didn't let the betrayal make you bitter. You let it shape you. And that's why you're being rewarded, not with the return of what broke you, but with the arrival of what will bless you. This isn't karma, this is compensation from the divine, and it's coming fast. You're not chasing it, it's chasing you. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the stillness after it. And now, without even trying, everything that was delayed will find its way back to you, healed, whole, and overflowing, because what they took was never truly theirs to keep. And what's yours can never be stolen, only delayed. Until now. You didn't just leave a person, you left a frequency, a whole vibration of pain, drama, confusion, and control. You walked away from the lies, the silent treatments, the gaslighting, and the cycles that kept you small. But more than that, you rose above the entire level they live on. You're not even on the same energetic map anymore. That's why they're screaming now. Not with words, but with their actions. They'll throw shade, spread rumors, try to get your attention, but it doesn't work anymore. Because you're no longer tuned into their signal. It's like they're yelling through a wall that you can't hear on your level. You're walking in peace now, in clarity, in purpose. You're breathing air they've never tasted, living in a light they never earned, and they can't follow. Not because you blocked them, but because their spirit cannot survive where you're going. The old version of you would have looked back, maybe even offered one last goodbye, but this version, the healed one, the awakened one, you keep walking, you don't argue, you don't explain, because the chosen don't fight for attention, they rise in silence and become unreachable. You've left the storm, you've left the pattern, you've left the entire frequency, and now they can only watch from a distance. They created, they thought breaking you would be easy, they thought if they could just make you doubt yourself, drain your energy, twist your truth, you would stay small forever. But what they didn't know is that you were never theirs to destroy. Now they're watching the very soul they tried to crush rise higher than they ever imagined. You're glowing in places they told you you'd never reach. You're smiling without needing their approval. You're building without needing their help. And that hurts them more than anything, because this isn't just a glow-up. This is a spiritual awakening, a transformation that no amount of manipulation can touch. They can't lie on your name anymore. They can't steal your light. They can't touch your peace, because you've become untouchable, not with pride, not with revenge, but with clarity, healing, and alignment. They're being forced to witness the rise of the one they tried to erase, and they can do nothing about it. They lost access to you, not because you wanted to punish them, but because they were never supposed to stay in your story that long. This isn't karma coming to bite them. This is divine justice in motion and a holy response to an unholy game. And the universe always defends its chosen ones. You didn't fight back, you didn't beg, you just healed. And that was enough to shake their entire left to copy. They stare into the silence and see only emptiness. No more fake love to mimic. No more light to steal. No more energy to drain. Why? Because the source has gone sovereign. That means you no longer seek their validation. You no longer need their apology. You no longer chase their love. You've taken your light back. You've remembered who you are. And now, they can't follow you anymore
because you've risen into a space their lies can't enter. They lost access. Not because you shut the door, but because you became the door they can't walk through. Let them sit in the silence they created. You're not a mirror anymore. You're a flame, and they can't fake what only the divine can give. They thought you disappeared. They thought your silence meant you were broken, weak, or lost. But you were never hiding. You were healing. You were watching. You were waiting, not for them, but for the signal deep within your soul to rise. Your quiet wasn't surrender. It was sacred, because real power doesn't need to shout. It listens. It strengthens. And that's exactly what you did. In the stillness, you found yourself. You let the noise fall away, the lies, the gaslighting, the fake love. And what rose from that silence was something holy. Now your voice is different. It doesn't tremble anymore. It thunders. Every word you speak carries the weight of what you've survived. You don't speak to be heard. You speak with purpose, because your voice is no longer just sound. It's truth wrapped in power. You weren't hiding. You were being activated. And now that you've awakened, nothing can stop what's coming through you. Not them, not their games, not their shadows. They'll try to silence you again, but they'll fail. Because you've already met the silence and you mastered it. You are not the same. You are not broken. You are activated, and the world is about to hear you roar. The narcissist has finally entered a space they never prepared for. Spiritual freefall. For so long they fed off your light, your kindness, your energy. See, they used your attention as their oxygen and your pain as their fuel. But now that access is gone. Your energy field, the very thing they depended on to feel powerful, has closed. You didn't slam the door, you simply elevated. You rose into a frequency their darkness cannot follow. And now their carefully built empire of lies is shaking from the inside. They can't manipulate you anymore. They can't hook into your emotions or twist your words. The mirror they used to copy you has cracked. The stage they performed on, empty, because the main source of their supply, you, has exited the story. And without your light to feed on, they're left with only themselves. The silence they once forced you into is now their prison. The games that once controlled you are now meaningless echoes. They are free-falling, not because you wished them harm, but because they built their kingdom on stolen light. And stolen light never lasts. You didn't just walk away, you spiritually unplugged. And now the narcissist is spiraling in the void they created for others. They're not just losing you, they're losing everything they built from your energy. And they know they'll never find that light again. The chosen one doesn't go back. Not to the pain, not to the old version of themselves, not to the people who only loved them when they were small and silent. You're not here to return to what broke you. You're here to rise above it. To break every toxic pattern that ran through your family, your relationships, your mind, to say, it ends with me. You weren't chosen to be accepted. You were chosen to shift generations. This is bigger than you. You carry the strength of every silent cry, every sleepless night, every battle you thought would break you. But instead, it built you. Now you're rising, not for revenge, but for redemption. Not to be seen, but to shine. You are the legacy rewriter, the pattern breaker, the light in the lineage. The path you walk is not easy, but it's sacred. You're not returning to the old story, you're writing a new one, bold, true, and powerful, because the chosen one doesn't go back to fit in. They move forward to stand out. They rise so others can find the courage to rise too. This is your time, not to shrink, but to lead, to rise without apology, and never, ever look back. Absolutely. Here's a 500-word, powerful and emotional paragraph-style version of the theme. Divine compensation has been triggered. What they took will be restored, not through revenge, but through radiant overflow. There comes a moment when the heavens speak louder than the wounds. A moment when everything the enemy stole, your peace, your identity, your joy, begins to return to you, not piece by piece, but in overflowing waves. That moment is now. Divine compensation has been triggered. The pain wasn't pointless, the losses weren't in vain, the people who walked away, the